Okay, it's that time of the show. We call it Around the Movie Block with The Rock. He is, with his very first review from the year 2019, he is Rocco Pasafume.
Thank you very much, Howie. I feel it would be perfect to kick off the year with the movie that everybody talked about in December 2018. It was not a theatrical release. Well, it was for 2 weeks, but it was another Netflix original. This is Bird Box, none other than that, directed by Suzanne Bier, and stars Sandra Bullock. The plot of this movie, for those who haven't seen it, 5 years after an ominous unseen presence drives most of society to suicide, a mother, Mallory, played by Bullock, and her 2 children make a desperate bid to reach safety. I guess the first question many of you would have is, why am I keep doing Netflix movies? Because Netflix is where it's at right now. I mean, we have the theatrical movies, but Netflix is really coming to its own as an alternative hub to watch, movies, basically. Because, you look at the movies that are out right now, it's mostly like, superhero movies and horror movies and, CGI animated movies for kids. But like a lot of these types of movies, like Bird Box here, is not things that you would normally see on the big screen anymore, because they want things that are more recognizable and that will sell. I mean, this, although it's originally based on a novel, was not something that was an automatic sell. I feel like what's made this movie kind of an unusual phenomenon and made it like the social media kind of hoopla that it is the fact that the thing about this movie is we haven't seen a lot of these movies in the way that it's done. I mean, Sandra Bullock, first of all, is a fantastic actor. She's perfectly cast in this movie. And the premise of the movie, while it looks really bizarre in its face, having, everybody wear blindfolds in the whole movie, but what makes the movie really work for me is the fact that, it's basically a movie about motherhood. And it's not something that we see a lot of in, fictional entertainment. We don't see a lot of movies where being a mother is front and center. And I think particularly with women, I think that's what really made so many people engage with this particular movie, is the fact that it's something that deals with a subject that many women particularly can relate to, but you haven't seen a lot of it on the big screen. The other aspect of this movie that I think, made a lot of people connect with it is the fact that even though it's a psychological thriller, most psychological thrillers are not R-rated. Most psychological thrillers tend to be very wide appealing movies that they want teenagers to go see and kids to go see. But this movie being an R-rated movie, because you can put things that are fairly graphic in a psychological thriller, that was another aspect to it that most people were not accustomed to with this. And that's, I think, another example of why I think Bird Box really hit with a lot of people. Is it a perfect movie? No. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the movie and how everything unfolds, and there's so much mystique and enigma to the story, I think that's one aspect of the movie that, even though it makes the movie fairly scary, it kind of hurts the movie because you feel like you don't really get a good sense of the characters. The character development isn't quite as strong as you would see in a lot of these types of movies. So I think that, like I said, it makes it a good scary movie, but it's not quite. It won't appeal to everybody, and like I said, there's a lot of a lot of graphic stuff that comes out in this movie, so it might be a bit of too much of a gross factor for some people. But I think if you want a movie that's fairly entertaining and fairly thrilling and has great acting, particularly from Sandra Bullock and to a lesser extent from John Malkovich, I think this is a good movie. I think that you'll definitely. I definitely would still recommend it, even though it's not, it's a bit on the flawed side. But I think what it has is one thing that movies unfortunately haven't been for a while, the theatrical movies, and that is movies that are tight and entertaining, and there's no fat in the movie at all. You don't feel like you're kind of nodding off at any points in this movie. You feel like you're with the movie from beginning to end, and I think that sometimes that's just as much important to a movie as well as originality and things of that nature. But overall, I think Bird Box definitely lives up to its hype, and I think that there's much that people will enjoy about this movie. And it definitely shows that Netflix is definitely becoming more and more a force to be reckoned with in the world of movies. So I give Bird Box 3 out of 5 stars, and you can watch it on Netflix right now. Thank you.
All right, before we finish, yes. Rocco's segment.
Okay.
Rocco mentioned the great actress, Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
And we all know
yes.
that her greatest performance in her greatest movie she ever did was a movie called The Blind Side, where she won the Academy Award.
Yes, that is very true.
All right, so Rocco and I are going to take a journey to see a movie next week, which will be Rocco's, just to whet your appetite a little bit for next week's review. There's a movie we're going to see called, not The Blind Side, but Upside.
Yes, The Upside.
And it's a very moving, inspirational film where Bryan Crampton is in a wheelchair and he's aided by
Kevin Hart.
So, Rocco, let's whet people's appetite.
Definitely.
Next week's review
will be
is
The
going
Upside.
to be Upside.
Definitely. I think I'm definitely excited to see this movie. It looks very interesting. It's from, originally it was from a French movie that came out a couple years ago called The Untouchables. So I'm definitely very intrigued by this, and I'm always, intrigued by Howie's particular interest in movies, because he likes to pick things that are very uplifting, and he loves movies so much as I do. So his take on movies and what he loves, I think, really gets me going in terms of really seeing things that are out of the box, that are entertaining, but also uplifting. It makes you realize why people love going to movies in the first place. So I'm definitely very excited to review Upside, and particularly just to see this movie just as a regular viewer at Howie. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Okay, great job. Rocco, pass for me.